Hello, everyone. I'm Bo from Brutal Commentary, and today I'm going to be breaking down our next matchup for UFC Qatar. In this one, we have Kyoji Horiguchi taking on Tagir Ulanbekov. So, for those of you who may not know, this is going to be Kyoji Horiguchi's return to the UFC. He originally fought in the promotion a few years back, where he was. Let me see if I can find it right here. There we go, where he was 7-1 in the promotion, with his only loss being a failed title shot to Demetrius Johnson when Demetrius Johnson ruled the roost. So that does say something. Plus, Kyoji Horiguchi in general, a well-traveled veteran, fought in Bellator, he's fought in Ryzen, he has fought some pretty good names, beating the likes of, say, Sergio Pettis, Kaya Sakura, when they had the duology, if you want to call it that, and a few other names like Manel Kopp. He's beaten in, like I said, fought Demetrius Johnson back in the day. Actually, that fight was about 2015, so a decade ago. So, like I said, Kyoji Horiguchi now makes his return. Overall, his record now stands at 34-5, and he takes on ranked contender Tagir Ulanbekov, who comes from Team Habib. And overall, pretty good record in the UFC, 4-1. His only loss was a decision to Tim Elliott, where, admittedly, Tim Elliott cheated a lot in that fight. But since then, 4-fight win streak. Two of the four are by finish, where he submitted Nate Maness, submitted Cody Durden, then beat Clay Carpenter and Azat Maxim by decision. Overall, this is going to be, I think, a pretty intriguing fight, especially seeing how Horiguchi does coming back in the UFC, especially at age 35. So it'll be interesting to see how he's going to do in his return to the UFC, especially against a Dagestani type wrestler. Well, without further ado, let's dive into the breakdown. So starting with Kyoji Horiguchi, one of his best known attributes during his time in the UFC, and even now this late into his career, is Kyoji Horiguchi's ability to step in and out of striking range. He has lightning fast striking, excellent movement, and has some top notch grappling. I mean, Kyoji Horiguchi's fought some of the best grapplers in the lower weight classes, like Patchy Mix, for example. Well, and Kyoji is the kind of fighter who can fight in any phase of the game, whether it's on the feet or in the clinch or on the ground, and he is definitely versatile. On the feet, Horiguchi is a technical striker. His boxing is sharp. He's got an outstanding ability, as I said, to move in and out of range without and doesn't get hit much because he's always adjusting his position. If you watch Mighty Mouse, he talks about it. He talked about it in one of his reaction videos. He said how Kyoji Horiguchi, while was able to outspeed Demetrius Johnson in one aspect of the fight game, that was his ability to dart in and out of striking range. Similar to karate practitioners, where they have an ability to come into strike range, whether with the punches or kicks, and then immediately come back to their starting position without getting touched. DJ talked about that in one of his videos. That's a different type of striking speed, and that just really comes from years of training. Kyoji will also throw in combination, pivot out, and reset, always staying in control of the distance. He's a fluid striker with a great feel for timing and doesn't waste any energy. And if he sees the opening, he'll exploit it, and he's got that killer's instinct when it's time to finish. But as I said, he's not just a striker because, he's been in this game for so long at this point. Kyoji has really well-rounded his game. His wrestling has improved over the years. He's got underrated submission in game. And once he gets you to the mat, he's a problem. Whether it's securing a dominant position or working for submission, he's got the tools to make you regret going on the ground with him for sure. Now, of course, he's also lost by sub against a few fighters. Like I said, DJ subbed him up, but it's Demetrius Johnson. Oh, well, it happens. But, Kyoji's been training at American Top Team for a few years now, and they've definitely improved his grappling over the years, especially in the rematch to Sergio Pettis. Now, looking at Tagir Ulanbekov, he is a relentless pressure-heavy fighter with a solid wrestling base. He's the typical Dagestani-type fighter, aggressive, methodical, and a master of controlling the pace of a fight. His grappling is his bread and butter, and once he gets you in the clinch or on the ground, it's going to be a long night for his opponent. And honestly, it's quite easy to think that the wrestling is Ulanbekov's the centerpiece for his entire game. It really is, because he's got a suffocating style. He's always looking to close the distance, land his shots, and drag the fight to the mat. His takedown timing is pretty impeccable. He doesn't need to use many fancy techniques. Now, he will at times, say, get a tight waist and lift his opponents up, or work in his trips and throws in close quarters. But that's really most of his takedown arsenal. That being said, he does have some traditional single legs and double legs, but primarily it is the pressure, clinch, and then trips to get his takedowns. And once he's there, he's a control-based fighter, grinding out with ground and pound, maintaining top position. That being said, he does have some sneaky submissions, specifically with his chokes. However, Ulanbekov isn't exactly a dynamic striker. His hands are basic but effective, and he's not gonna woe you with his technique and fluidity. His striking is just to close the distance and set up his takedowns. And if he can't get you down or keep you from, if he can't, yeah, and then he can keep you off balance with movement, and Ulanbekov can struggle to find his rhythm. Or I'm sorry, if his opponents can keep him off balance. I apologize for that. You also notice something about Tagir Ulanbekov's wrestling. If his opponents have really good balance, he struggles to take them down. Specifically, you saw in the Azat Maxim fight, where I understand that, or I should say something. This is a rebooking. They were originally supposed to fight in June for the Azerbaijan card. But, Horiguchi had to pull out, and then Azat Maxim stepped in. And I understand Kyoji and Maxim are completely different fighters. But you notice that Azat Maxim had pretty good takedown defense, not only because he was as tall as Tagir and seemingly as strong, but he had very, very good balance. And you saw Tagir struggle with struggle to take him down with that balance. And you saw Tagir at times really start to, that started to drain him. And once he started to fail his takedowns, his cardio started to fail. Same thing with Tim Elliott, because not only was Tim Elliott, like I said, blatantly cheating, I will admit that. You saw, because of Elliott's frantic pace and more or less inability to be controlled for long portions, it really drained Tagir's cardio. That is something I've noticed throughout Ulanbekov's career. Now, on paper, this is a classic striker versus grappler matchup, but there are a few more layers to it for me. Horiguchi, or I'm just going to say Kyoji, sorry. Kyoji has the advantage in the striking, his movement, his speed, his timing. These are things that Ulanbekov will have a tough time dealing with. And if Kyoji can keep his distance and not let Ulanbekov get his hands on him, I think he can control the pace of the fight. But Ulanbekov's game is all about pressure. And if he can close the distance and get Kyoji up against the cage or on the mat, it's a different story. Because Kyoji's takedown defense is solid, but Ulanbekov is relentless, and he won't stop coming at you. He's going to constantly move forward and trying to chain together his wrestling. If he can get Kyoji down to the ground and wear him down, he can be trouble for the veteran. That's mostly how, say, Patchy Mix was able to beat him. Now, I understand that was at bantamweight 8, so Kyoji was fighting a much bigger fighter than Tagir. But it is how Patchy Mix was able to win their fight, as while Kyoji was the better striker than Mix, and obviously the faster of the two, once Mix was able to cut corners and cut the cage off and then get his hands on Kyoji, he was able to dominate majority of the fight, or at least minutes on the clock, via dominant positions with his grappling. The key for Kyoji is movement and range control. He needs to stay light on his feet, use his jab to control the distance, and make Ulanbekov miss. Because Kyoji's got the better striking, and he's more than capable of just outpointing Tagir for over 3 rounds. So as long as he can avoid getting dragged into the clinch or takedown. For Tagir, his key is simply pressure and grappling. He's got to close the distance, get Kyoji against the cage, and work for takedowns. Because Tagir's ground game is very dangerous, not just because it's about control, but he has shown to have, like I said, good submission abilities. And if he can impose his wrestling, lay the ground and pound, and stay heavy on top, he can break Kyoji down and wear him out and tire him out. And his striking is there to set up his takedowns. As I said, it's not the flashiest, but it's a good means to an end at the end of the day. So, who do I take in this one? As much as Tagir is a pressure machine, and trust me, a part of me is a little nervous about picking a 35-year-old flyweight who is coming back to the UFC after a decade. But it's not like he's fought in LFA or something and fighting some regional bums. He's still fought in some of the highest level promotions you can outside of the UFC in both Bellator and Ryzen. So I am going to pick Kyoji Horiguchi in this one. I think he has the tools to deal with Tagir. Horiguchi's speed, his movement, and his ability to mix up striking and grappling give him the edge. And while Tagir will be tough to deal with, I think Kyoji can afford the early pressure, and I see him start taking over the fight as we go on. So I'm picking Kyoji Horiguchi to win, and I think he can get the decision in this one. I think he'll be able to stay on the outside, avoid the clinch, and land his counters. And while Tagir's pressure is going to give him some problems for sure, I just think Kyoji's overall experience and well-rounded game will eventually win out. And I think he'll avoid the takedowns and even be able to get up at certain points. And I just think he's going to be able to outpoint Tagir because of his speed advantage. So, but with that being said, that's been my breakdown of this fight. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below on who you think is going to win. And with that being said, stay calm, stay respectful, and enjoy the violence. I'll see you all next time.